When you picture war in House of the Dragon, it's all fire and blood, right? Dragons turning armies into ash, knights charging into glorious combat, and everyone scrambling for that pointy iron throne. But what if I told you the real battle isn't fought with swords or fire? The true war in Westeros is fought over something far more powerful. Bread. Because it turns out, before you can get that epic battlefield glory, you have to feed an army. Forget swords and dragons for a minute. Picture this. Thousands of soldiers plus their horses marching day after day across Westeros. Without enough food, they'd be dead before they even see a battlefield. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. The cost of keeping an army in Westeros. Alright, so let's set the scene. In Fire and Blood, Lord Ormond Hightower isn't messing around. This guy is rolling up with one big army. According to Grandmaster Munkin, the Hightower host numbered nearly 20,000 soldiers. 20,000 people all marching towards Tumbleton with more baggage than your average Targaryen. Leading the charge, you've got 1,000 knights in shiny heavy armor feeling like absolute legends. Then there are 1,000 archers ready to rain arrows on anyone dumb enough to get in range, plus 3,000 men-at-arms who can actually hold their own in a fight. And then, well, 15,000 levies and sellswords. A mix of peasants with pointy sticks who probably haven't seen that much combat before today, and swords for hire. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. Behind every great army is a much larger crew of camp followers. Based on real-world history, camp followers were likely one for every 2 soldiers, making them 10,000 in total. These followers were cooks, blacksmiths, stable hands, people making sure soldiers are fed, the weapons are sharp, and the horses don't keel over from sheer exhaustion. And if you thought that was impressive, hold on to your helmet because we haven't even gotten to the real monster, the baggage train. Picture carts and more carts and even more carts, loaded with food, weapons, tents, and of course, food for the horses. Alright, so you've got 20,000 soldiers, 10,000 camp followers, and a whole bunch of horses, all on a nice little stroll across Westeros. Sure, we all love those scenes of knights galloping into battle, but no one is talking about the real struggle. The guy just trying to choke down his daily ration of bread and stew. It's less legendary, but still. Look at the cute little guy, stuffing his face, wondering when a dragon will swoop down and destroy everything. Isn't he lucky? Oh, and if you thought foraging was a quick fix, think again. Sure, you can pillage a few farms here and there, but that only works for so long before the land is picked clean. After that, good luck finding a fresh loaf of bread when you're smack in the middle of enemy territory, miles away from the nearest supply depot. As the march drags on, the food supply starts running lower and lower. By the time you hit the halfway mark, it's not just about morale anymore, it's about survival. At this point, you're not even fighting enemy armies, you're fighting hunger. Moving and feeding an army on a campaign is a war all on its own, fought not with swords or dragons, but with bread and some starving horses. Alright, it's time to get serious. Let's head straight to the numbers. A medieval soldier typically required around 1 kilogram of grain per day, meaning the soldiers would require 20,000 kilograms of grain and 10,000 kilograms for the followers. Altogether, this army is inhaling 30,000 kilograms of food a day. For context, that's about the same weight as gulping up 5 elephants. Now, each cart can carry 500 kilograms of supplies. Assuming 20% of the load is for the driver, camp supplies and other equipment, the cart can transport 400 kilograms of supplies for the army. Which means you'll need 75 carts just to move enough food for one day's march. But here's the kicker, those carts, they're pulled by horses. And guess what horses like to do? Eat. Each horse needs 10 kilograms of grain and hay per day, meaning your trusty baggage train is devouring part of the very food it's hauling. So congratulations, you're basically creating an infinite loop. 150 horses for the carts, plus 1000 horses for the knights, you're looking at 11,500 kilograms of feed a day. That's another 29 carts just for horse feed. Now remember, the army of the Hightower is moving from Old Town to Tumbleton, which is about 900 miles. And at a pace of 15 miles a day, this will take the army 60 days with no delays. And every single day, that baggage train grows longer and heavier. Now let's talk about rest days. Even the most disciplined army in Westeros can't march for 60 days straight, no matter how many motivational speeches you throw at them. So even on these days off, your resources are still getting burned up like wildfire. Let's say they take one rest day for every 6 days of marching. That's 10 rest days over the course of this 60-day slog. But rest days are the least of your worries. What really messes up your schedule? Battles. Let's take the Battle of the Honey Wine for example. After the battle, they didn't just pack up and keep marching. They had to spend 3 whole days licking their wounds and counting their losses. And then there's the Siege of Longtable. More time where the army just sits there, eating and waiting. And every extra day spent in a siege puts even more pressure on your baggage train, which by now is about as reliable as a Westerosi spymaster. So let's add up the damage. Between rest days and battles, you're looking at nearly 25 extra days, 1,038 tons of food, if you're lucky. Now that we've gone through the logistics, let's talk about what you came here for, the cost of all this. To do that, I went back to one of the best sources of Westerosi economics, Dunk and Egg. In the Hedge Knight, Dunk buys a feast for just 1 silver stag. We also know that for larger bulk purchases like buying a bushel of corn or grain was 1 silver stag. So here's how we convert those figures into something we can use. 1 gold dragon is equal to 210 silver stags. A bushel of corn or grain is roughly 25 kilograms, meaning the number of bushels needed daily is 1,181. So in total, that's 1,181 silver stags, or roughly 5.62 gold dragons spent just on food for the soldiers each day. The pack animals and night horses needs their share too. We're talking about feeding 12,000 kilograms of fodder per day for the horses, which adds another 2.26 gold dragons a day to the total. Let's talk about the baggage train. You've got 104 carts needed per day to carry all the food and gear. For maintenance and drivers, I'm estimating 1 silver stag per cart per day, so that's 104 silver stags daily. Add in some extra costs for clothing, tents, tools and extra building supplies and you can tack on another 1 gold dragon per day. So the total cost per day is around 9.38 gold dragons, and over a 60-day campaign you're looking at a whopping 563 gold dragons to keep this army fed and moving. Factoring in delays from battles, sieges and raids, the total cost could rise significantly to around 815 to 877 gold dragons. That's a whole lot of gold, spent not on glorious battles, but on bread, grain and fodder. The horrifying part is that every single gold dragon spent on feeding this ravenous horde is 1 less gold dragon you could have when a dragon inevitably comes and turns your well-fed army to ash. Now, you might think that you have your answer, but we're not done yet. You see, Lord Hightower's 20,000 troops aren't all loyal bannermen and eager peasants wielding pitchforks. About 15,000 of them are what we like to call irregulars, a mix of levies and mercenaries. And when you break down the numbers, a hefty portion of those irregulars are in fact sellswords. During the Battle of Rook's Rest, Aegon II and Criston Cole brought about 600 knights and men-at-arms, but they also had 3 times that number in sellswords, and we can assume a similar ratio with the Hightower host since that was a common ratio. And here's where things get expensive. A competent sellsword makes about 1 silver stag a day, but let's be real, not all of them are competent. So let's go with a conservative average of 0.75 silver stags per day for each mercenary. That means just to keep these mercenaries in the field, Lord Hightower is shelling out around 8,400 silver stags. That's roughly 40 gold dragons a day. Now multiply that over the entire campaign. That's about 3,174 to 3,415 gold dragons just to keep these mercenaries on the menu for the incoming dragon. This brings the grand total to 3,989 to 4,292 gold dragons for the entire journey. And then you realize the army needs to make its way back, which would almost double the gold dragons needed. And that, my friends, is just one more reason why when the king dies, you pray to all the gods that you get another conciliator on the throne. Alright, for fun, let's break down the cost in good old freedom bucks. It was difficult to find a consensus since theories differ and everyone has an opinion. For simplicity, let's use a conservative estimate of $1,000 per gold dragon and a high estimate of $14,000 per gold dragon. So when I say Lord Hightower's campaign costs 4,000 gold dragons, what I'm actually saying is that it is between 4.3 to $60 million. And for that you can buy anything from 8,000 PlayStation 5s to a decked out fighter jet. Why? Because f*** you, that's why. The funny thing is, running a medieval army in Westeros really isn't that different from running a modern military today. The tools have changed, but the pain of logistics, they're still the same. Whether you're dealing with dragons or drones, there's one universal truth that has held steady for centuries. War is not cheap. In the Game of Thrones, battles might be fought with swords and dragons, but they're won with bread. Food decides the outcome long before swords are even drawn. So next time you watch an epic battle in House of the Dragon, remember this. Behind every charge, behind every clash of steel and roar of dragons, there's a long fuck-off line of carts transporting bread. Because in the end, victory doesn't just belong to the strongest fighters, it belongs to the best prepared. If you enjoyed this logistical deep dive, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more chaos in Westeros. Have you ever wanted to know how to become a legendary Knight of the Seven Kingdoms? Then check out this video on the left. Or perhaps you have always wanted to know how much it costs to own a dragon? Then check out the video on the right. See you in the next one.